Hi, welcome back to my channel and welcome to this new series, Asanas Explained. Asana is the Sanskrit word meaning yoga postures. So in this series we're going to break down lots of the most common yoga postures like downward facing dog, try to make sense of them, try to make friends with them so that you can start to practice them confidently in classes and at home. Now, downward facing dog felt like the most obvious place to start in this series. Adho Mukha Svanasana, that's the Sanskrit name. Any corrections to my pronunciation, if you know Sanskrit, please leave them in the comments below so that I can keep improving my pronunciation. Downward facing dog is a posture you will come across in any class you go to, anywhere in the world. It's unavoidable. And although it's so commonly referred to as neutral or resting posture, it's really hard work, especially when you're first starting your yoga practice or if you've had a break from yoga for a while. It requires a lot of strength through the upper body, through the core, flexibility throughout the legs and the shoulders as well. So please don't be discouraged if you're finding it tough at the moment. So let's dive in and I'll show you the way that I like to teach people downward facing dog. Come down to your hands on your knees first, find tabletop position. So you're going to have your hands under your shoulders with the fingers spread out wide. The knees under your hips, about hip distance apart. And then we'll tuck under the toes. As you lift up, keep this bend in your knees and press your bum up towards the ceiling. Reach towards the back of the room with your hips so that you can feel your arms lengthening and straightening out. Let your head dangle between your arms. Think about reaching your chest towards your thighs. So we're not forwards like this, we're not rounding through the back, we're pressing the hips back and taking our weight towards the back of the mat. Now if you start with a bend in the knees, you're going to come up onto your tiptoes like this, and then you can take that pedaling action that lots of teachers talk about. So you're going to reach one heel down towards the mat, feel the back of that leg stretch out while the opposite knee stays bent, and then switch over. Try not to rush through that action. You're going to feel your legs stretching out with this. That's the intention here. Nice. You can come down and rest whenever you need. Come back down to the knees, a little breather. Remember, it really isn't a resting pose, it is a tough posture to hold, especially if you're new to yoga or you've had a break from practicing yoga asana. It's going to take time for your whole body, but particularly your shoulders, your arms, to build that strength and for the muscle memory to develop so that your body knows how to hold that posture. So let's talk through a couple of the common mistakes here. What I often see is people come up, they want to straighten their legs and get their heels down, and so then this happens. The back is really uncomfortable, there's tension around the shoulders, all of my weight is in my arms, I'm basically in a plank position. So what we want to do instead is have that bend in the knees and reach back with the hips. Let the arms straighten, the head dangles down. Another thing I see quite often is people will walk their feet in. If they've got the flexibility in the legs, it's much nicer to just stand like this with the feet really close. So what I'm actually doing, I'm just in a forward fold here, but my hands are on the ground, so there's no effort in my arms. So we don't want to go too short on downward facing dog. We do want to feel that the weight is kind of evenly distributed between the hands and the feet. Now, a couple of other questions that I commonly get asked about downward facing dog. First one is, do I have to get my heels to touch the ground? No, is the short answer here. For many people, it is anatomically impossible for the heels to touch the ground. It requires a greater degree of mobility in the ankle than most people have. So unless you are slightly hypermobile, you are not going to be able to touch the heels down. So forget about that as a metric for how good you are at downward facing dog, and instead focus on finding that lengthening of the back. The most important thing is that we're straightening out the spine. It wants to feel good in your back, like your spine is being pulled in two directions. That's the key here. What the legs and the heels are doing is less important. Second question is, how do I stop my hands from slipping forwards? This is something I used to really struggle with. I, like many of you watching I'm sure, get quite sweaty palms when I'm practicing yoga, so I used to find that my hands would slip on the mat all the time. Now, the good news is the more you practice and the stronger you become and the more your muscle memory kicks in with downward facing dog, this slipperiness does tend to go away because your body learns how to hold that posture without relying so heavily on leaning into your hands. But in the meantime, a few things you can try. One is upgrading your yoga mat, finding a yoga mat that's a bit more grippy. You can also just have a little towel with you so you can wipe your hands every now and again just to make them grip to your mat more easily. And another trick that you can do is to grab a yoga strap, have it running across the front of your mat so that this section of your hand, the base of the fingers, presses onto the strap when you come to downward facing dog, and that's going to give you that little bit more resistance with the strap against the mat. And finally, one more tip, if you find that you get quite sort of pinched or squashed shoulders when you're in downward facing dog, a couple of things that you can try are taking your hands wider on the mat so that you've got a little bit more space for your shoulders, or turning your hands out just very slightly. So have a little play around with moving the positioning and the rotation of your hands and see if you can find a place for them that works for you, that gives your shoulders a little bit more space. And finally, remember, all of our bodies are unique. So although there are some kind of ground rules for how to practice downward facing dog, it will take a bit of trial and error, making little adjustments to find a version of it that suits you, that suits your body. And with time, practice, that muscle memory will start to kick in, it will become easier and more enjoyable. If you have any other questions, please leave them in the comments below. Let me know what other poses you would like me to break down and talk about. If you found this video helpful, remember to give it a thumbs up, to like the video, and if you haven't subscribed yet, I would love it if you would subscribe to this channel so you can see more videos as they come out. Thank you for watching, hope this has been helpful. I will see you next time.